All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you. And welcome to our Wednesday meditation. So today, talk a little bit, just to begin with, about a little of a struggle that I am working through at this moment. So my wife has a very difficult relationship with her family, and it has always been somewhat difficult and kind of made worse by a number of factors. One of them being the political situation that we have in this country as we, as a family, stand on the opposite side of where they seem to want to stand. And so I think that doesn't help, but it really runs much deeper. That really is more symptomatic than really the reason, at least in my opinion. And the reason this is difficult for me is because that I often say this, or I have said it, that I feel like my wife and I are one person almost. What she feels, I feel, and I think it works both ways for us. And we've been together for over 40 years. So, a lot of water under the bridge, a lot has happened. I'm sure everybody can relate to long-term relationships and that. But so this thing happened recently having to do with her recovering from her knee and her family being, I don't know if I should put this in video, but not being very kind about it in a lot of ways. And so it was very, very, very hurtful. And so this has been simmering in me. And whenever I have anger or dislike, I try to let it rise. I try to see it and I really work hard to let it go. And this is one of those things I've really been struggling with to let it go. So I wrote a poem about it in my wife's voice, which I'll probably share next week when I put out my poem. It's written as if she wrote it. In a lot of ways, I feel, again, like we're kind of one person. So I kind of have permission to do that. But the reason I raise this is I've also been reading through Pima Chadron's book, and she talks a lot about being comfortable with things that make you uncomfortable. So I've trying to understand it through that eyes to be able to see that my emotion and my anger, which is what it is, and seeing somebody else who I'm very close to feel that hurt on a moment by moment basis is really something that I struggle with and have a hard time letting go. And I find myself kind of grasping and ruminating on it, which doesn't necessarily help. And hopefully, writing the poem helps. And hopefully, I've been trying to meditate and see this and sort of just let it go, that, I just need to let it go. So, but one of the things that Pima Chadron talks about, which is kind of interesting, I think, is the idea of be comfortable with that you feel that way and that this is part of humanity and understand it and see it and, in a sense, embrace the emotion so that you can learn how to respond to it in a way that becomes productive for yourself. And so I guess writing about it for me was one of those ways. And so I did that. But also to understand that when things cut so deep, when things feel like you can't find the bottom of them, they can linger like an open wound, and it often feels that way for me. And so, um, it's just been sort of an interesting struggle for me. So in my class this morning, I kind of meditated on this, and not that I talked as much about it because I feel a little bit more connected to you guys, I think. But I sort of talked about it. So anyway, that's kind of where my mind is at as we enter this meditation, and it may show up in the meditation itself. We'll see kind of where I take it, and sort of we'll go from there. So with that, we can begin. So we start, as always, sitting back, finding our comfortable place, grounding ourselves, and starting basically just with our breath, feeling our breath enter and breathe in and breathing out and settling into our space, settling into our mental state, our psychological state, our feeling state. grounding ourselves by awakening our senses, feeling our tactile sense, feeling and being aware of what we hear, the background noise, wherever you are. There's a hum of a fan that I can hear, which means our air conditioning unit is running, and it has a nice, even hum that is very soothing for me. Reminds me of a hum I would have if I were humming along to a song and just following a tone, even, consistent, and in many ways calming, like a white noise machine in the background. So I lean into the sound to ground myself in the present moment. And I lean into my chair as it leans back in the arms of the chair. The fabric is a little bit rough, although it's cushiony. It's a little ragged as it's an old chair. So I feel it on my hands as I rub my hands across them. Then we lay our hands on our bellies and we feel our breath rise up and drop down. And rise up and slowly drop back. And I feel the air entering my body. I feel the coolness of the air as it enters. I feel it circling. I feel it awakening me. I felt fatigue earlier in the afternoon. And now as I sat and prepared for the meditation, and as I sit in the meditation and I take in the oxygen, it's as if it's lighting up my brain, lighting up my consciousness, lighting up my awareness. So it's almost like I can see a sheen, like the sunshine surrounding me, and feeling that, and feeling bits of energy as they rise up inside of me. And I breathe in and I breathe out. And I think about where things begin, beginning of things. And I've had this picture in my mind of the movement of spring to summer to now late summer. And as I stood outside my garden earlier today, picking through it, looking for tomatoes that needed picking, looking at the cucumbers that needed picking, and picking a few things that were ready, and feeling their texture. My mind moved backwards. Memory arose. And of course, memory always arises in the present moment. So the past is really gone in a sense, but also never gone, but transformed into how I see the present. And I remember helping my wife plant, putting seeds into the ground for some things, small baby plants in for other things, smoothing the soil, watering the soil, preparing it. And there it was, sort of an empty garden, mostly dirt, some seeds, some small tomato plants. And so I see it, and it reminds me of the constant process of growth. And I visualize in my mind being a single seed of any plant, and how it drops to the ground and falls in the moist earth in spring, or maybe had sat there overwintering underneath a layer of snow and ice. And as the snow melted into the ground, it was absorbed by the ground. And the earth in early spring is a rich, 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 dark color, almost like itself is alive. And I can think of picking up the dirt and moving it out of the way to put a plant in or to put a seed in. And in this case, I remember pressing a seed in and feeling the seed, feeling the sheen of the seed on my thumb, remembering not to push it too deeply, pushing the dirt back over it, and doing this repeatedly for a number of plants. My garden is not very large, but large enough that it is a few hours worth of work to get everything planted and settled and smooth out the soil, pull out the hose, water it so it has the right amount of moisture, and standing with the hose and spraying, watching the water come out, feeling the warmth of the sun in May as spring emerges, moving away from the cold of winter and the dampness of spring. Noticing the sun getting higher in the sky as it reaches its zenith. And feeling like I too am almost a plant. I am transforming myself through this process. I am opening myself up to the creation of the resurgence of life, where there were some weeds and brown and dirt and pebbles, little tiny bugs that would turn up in your hand when you put your fingers in the soil. Now there were seeds that were life-giving, that would produce flowers and vegetables all across our small garden. And it's as if I was given the power to nurture life again. I always think of winter as the season of rest, season of hibernation. Things are white, cold, and dark, and dreary. And your nose, I remember the feeling of my nose being cold in the cold weather, and the contrast to the warmth of the sun standing out there on that day and this day. And I think about the plant beneath the ground, the seed beneath the ground, sitting deeply in the ground, a couple of inches deep anyway. And I think about my own emotions and what's inside of me. And perhaps you can think about what's inside of you and how it is, in a sense, very similar to that seed. It is something we plant, something that gets planted and that we nurture. Sometimes we neglect, we hide, we ignore, thinking perhaps it'll go away. But the seed, although unseen, is working overtime, in a sense, or consistently, never ceasing, never stopping, beyond vision, beyond my senses, but real. And slowly it cracks open, just a small thing. And I think of my own sense of feelings, all the things that I hold inside, all the weight that I choose to carry, all the weight that I carry that I don't even see or am aware of. So I feel as if the seed and the seeds of what's inside of me, the multiple seeds, are on a parallel course, perhaps with a lesson to teach me, or something to point out to me, not so much to teach, but to demonstrate, to show. And I think of the plant opening slowly, and the little green sort of popping up, and yet the weight of the ground is on top of it. And it would seem to me, if I dug my fingers in at that moment and picked it up, it would seem so fragile, as if it could be snuffed out easily if one were to choose to do that. But it has power and strength, and it has potential, and it has a mission and a destination, in a sense. Not conscious, not aware, not choices that it's making. It doesn't have choice in the way that we have choice. It has a destiny. And perhaps we too have a destiny, unaware of what that is. Perhaps we have more control over that destiny than the plant. Perhaps not. Perhaps we are just like the plant. Every season we reseed, we get watered, we get sun, we get nurtured, we get hurt, we lose things, we struggle, we cry and we laugh, we smile and we frown. And we have those seeds in us that perhaps produce some of that, or teach us, or show us, or we respond to, or we react to. The plant reacts to the soil, to the nitrogen, the phosphates, the other chemical nutrients that are in the ground. It doesn't see them. It doesn't actively seek to have them put there, but they are there, unseen, and they are working to nurture the plant as the green of the plant starts to rise towards the surface. And I think of it almost like I'm watching a pot or a pan of boiling water. I turn the fire on, and I can hear the rumble of the water as the water starts to get warm. It's moving. The molecules in there are bouncing off of one another. And slowly air pockets form, bubbles, and they start to rise to the surface. And the plant rises to the surface, seeking the sunlight, seeking to break through the ground. And what I hold inside and what we hold inside also seeks to raise to the surface. And so it comes up, and sometimes perhaps we put a lid on it, a lid on top of the pan of the boiling water. Perhaps a heavy piece of wood on top of the soil, and a lid on our own emotions and feelings. They're unpleasant. They don't feel good. They bring a level of discomfort, dissatisfaction. They fight against what I think I want to be, or how I perceive what I want to feel. But the emotions are not interested. The lid doesn't care that the water is trying to raise up. The board on top of the ground is not interested that there's a plant trying to break through. So I think about the need to open up, to remove the lid, to take the wood off, and to let arise what is in there, just to be there. And as I take the wood off the garden, off the ground, I toss it over to the side, out of the way. I remove the weight, and I can see the plant stick its nose, in a sense, through the ground, rising up through the ground, peeking out. Its green leaf slowly breaking through. The bubbles of the water turn to gas, water vapor, and they float away into the sky. And the amount of water in the pan is reduced, so the weight of the pan is lighter. And as for me and what's inside of me, I let it arise. And I look at it, and I let go of judgment, let go of feeling bad about it. I give myself permission to see it, almost to swim in it, to let it roll around, to watch it, to find a way to let it turn to water vapor too, and to roll up into the sky and be gone and move forward like the plant moves forward, rising up, its leaves starting to spread, its greenery there. And I nurture it daily, come out with the hose, or I set up the water, unless it rains, in which it doesn't require any assistance from me. But on many days it does. And I stand out there with the hose and I watch the water, and I feel it sometimes trickle back or the wind blow the water on me, and I feel the wetness, the moisture. And I see the garden go from a dusty kind of color of earth to a richer, darker color. And I water the whole garden. And I water the wildflower garden. And I water the flowers on the side of the house, both to the west and to the east of the house. And I take it all in, and the water connects me to the plants. It's as if the hose and the water are emerging not from the well or the house or the water system, but they're emerging in some way from my will, from me, extending myself as a nurturer, showing compassion to the flowers and the plants that need the water. And they deliver for me all sorts of things. The flowers and their colors and their fragrances and their attraction of butterflies. The garden as it grows, the leaves and the vegetables that begin to form. The tomatoes, the beans, the green peppers, the carrots, the celery, the cucumbers, and the wildflowers just grow. I don't think they need much of me, but I speak to them anyway. I connect to them. Their blues, their purples, their lavenders. It's as if they create a paint by number scene that colors the yard, offsetting the green and the browns and the earth tones with pastels. And the birds fly out of their nests, and the chipmunks run around. Sometimes I'll find a tomato that somebody's been gnawing at. So it's not usable for me, but it has fed somebody. So the circle of life is continuous. And the circle of life requires us to allow these things to arise, to see them, and to nurture them. So I try to see what's in my own heart. If I keep it tucked away, it festers. If I don't water it in some way to be able to see it, it festers and it weighs heavy, as if I'm carrying all of that weight in my pockets, in my backpack. It becomes toxic, and I carry it around without recognizing what it is. So I become reactive. So I try to let go of that reactivity. I try to be the plant, the vegetable, the flower, the boiling water, the lesson that they give to me, what they show me. I see my connection. I feel and sense my connection. I sit with it. I stop as I sit in our session, in our meditation. And I breathe in and I focus on my breath and I allow it to enter me. And the plants take in the carbon dioxide that I have breathed out. And I take in the oxygen that they have given back to me. So I'm in the cycle. And as the summer wears on, and as we move towards late summer, as the sun in the sky that was high in middle of May now is moving into the south. The zenith is not as high as it was. The hours of sunlight shrink as the pattern continues, moment by moment, day by day, showing me the impermanence, and speaking to me. See it, understand it, let it go, let it dissipate, let it be the boiling water, let it be the plant rising out, giving its vegetables away, and slowly giving in to the cold weather that invariably will arrive, so that it can become dormant and fall back into the soil, giving the nutrients for the next generation. And I breathe in and I think about that cycle. And I breathe out. And I breathe in and I feel a sense of my feet on the ground, as if I can stand straight up and in balance as I see it. And I recognize my own humanity, my own flaws, my own vulnerability. Like the vulnerability of the plant that requires the right conditions is strong because of that vulnerability, because it has the courage to grow and give. I too am strong by seeing my own vulnerability. We all are stronger by recognizing that, seeing it. It opens us up. It opens us up to all things because they are vulnerable. Even the universe and the stars, the sun that gives us the light and the warmth to be able to live on the planet will someday, perhaps billions and millions of years, maybe billions of years, eventually be transformed on itself and be gone. So I'm comforted by that. The cycle is always there, always rolling. The plants are always rising. My emotions, my feelings, my perceptions are always rising. And I slow down and I take a breath and I breathe in and I breathe out. And I settle myself and I watch my thoughts. I watch the movie that comes across us. I settle into it. And I feel a sense of comfort and softness and place and purpose. I breathe in and I breathe out. In and out. I pick the next ripe tomato. I roll it in my hands. Put it in my pocket. And namaste. May the light in me shine in you.